Hello and welcome to our pre-recorded session of the Postsecondary and Career Expectations Overview, or the PaCE Overview. My name is Dada Ibrahimovic and I am a Professional Development Specialist with the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. Before we get started, I do just want to talk about ISAC a little bit in case you are not familiar with us. We are the state's financial aid agency, and we administer grants and scholarships to students across the state of Illinois who decide to stay in the state of Illinois for college. Our mission statement is providing Illinois students with information and assistance to help make education beyond high school accessible and affordable. And we also provide professional development offerings. I am a part of the professional development team, but we provide offerings on topics such as updates to the FAFSA, to the alternative application, financial aid process, resources and support options for underrepresented students. So if you are interested in professional development for either yourselves or for your team, definitely check us out, isac.org/PD. But if you're looking for PaCE support specifically, it's isac.org/PaCE. Okay, so this agenda provides an overview of what we will be covering today. So we will begin by discussing the legislation behind PaCE, and then we will examine the PaCE framework, how to get started. After that, we will go through the three-step PaCE implementation process. And then finally, we will end the presentation with highlighting our resources and support options. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So in May of 2016, the Illinois House and Senate, they passed the PWR Act. And with the PWR Act being signed into law, what it did is it partnered the four education agencies in the state of Illinois. So who is that? That is us here at ISAC. That is the Illinois State Board of Education, the Illinois Community College Board, and the Illinois Board of Higher Education. So ISAC, ISB, ICCB, and IBHE. And we were all partnered to develop a system for ensuring that Illinois high school students are college and career ready. So in July of 2017, that was the deadline for the agencies to adopt and then recommend a framework that outlines the Illinois PaCE framework. And then in May of 2022, Public Act 102-0917 was signed, which builds upon the PWR Act with a focus specifically on PaCE and college and career pathway endorsements. And then in July of 2023, the four state education agencies, we adopted and publicized the updated Illinois PaCE framework. So originally, the framework went from 8th grade through 12th grade, but then in July of 2023, we had to extend that into grades 6 and 7 as well. So now the framework goes all the way from 6th grade to 12th grade. So with the PWR Act, we do just want to break down the four components. So PaCE is just one of the components of the PWR Act. I do want to briefly touch on the other three components, just so that everyone is aware of what they are and also which agency to contact for more information. So the first we have is PaCE. Here at ISAC, we are the agency in charge of PaCE. So if you do have PaCE-specific questions, you're in the right place. We do have contact info at the end of the presentation if you do happen to have any questions. There is also college and career pathway endorsements. So schools do have the option of awarding college and career pathway endorsements, otherwise known as CCPEs, on high school diplomas. So students would earn endorsements by completing something called an individualized learning plan, which is just a career-focused sequence and also professional learning opportunities. So ISB is the one that is primarily involved in that effort. Sorry about that. I had to pause the recording for just 1 second. But yeah, so CCPEs, ISB is primarily involved with this effort. But if you do, look into PaCE, you will see that PaCE and CCPEs, they are intertwined. There's also something called transitional instruction. So this includes transitional math or transitional English. So the state, we have identified that a major barrier to post-secondary completion and or even just wanting to go into college is credit-bearing classes. There are some students that do not test into credit-bearing classes, aka they have to take remedial classes that do not give them credit towards their degree at all until they finally work their way up to a college level class. But we do now have transitional math and transitional English. That is something that they can take in high school so that they can, be ready for college and go right into credit-bearing classes. And then finally, there is something called the competency education pilot. So the competency-based model, this just allows for experiential learning both inside and outside of the classroom. It is currently still in its pilot phase, but if you are interested, ISB is also primarily responsible for this component. So I do want to go over what I was talking about earlier with PaCE and CCPEs, as well as college and career readiness indicators, how they are all intertwined. So this graphic, it's called the PaCE crosswalk, and it shows which PaCE elements align with college and career readiness indicators, as well as college and career pathway endorsements. So we recognize that there are so many things that a school has to make sure that they are hitting on. We did not want PaCE to be another thing that has to be, started from scratch. We wanted it to encompass, one, what's already being done in the school, but also have it documented somewhere, and as well, hopefully provide a goal for what the school is going to look like within the next few years, aka, building more college and career programming within the school. So I do want to talk about Public Act 102-0917 that I talked about earlier as well. So this is that law that builds upon the PWR Act, focusing on the two main components, so Illinois PaCE and college and career pathway endorsements, and also it amends certain sections of the Illinois School Code for both public high schools and Chicago public schools. So I will discuss what that looks like for both CPS and for Illinois public schools in general. So there was so um, So Public Act does also affect the four state agencies as well. So obviously ISAC, ISB, IBHE, and ICCB, like we discussed earlier, that no later than July 1st of 2023, the four state agencies with appropriate stakeholders involved will need to adopt and publicize the update to the Illinois PaCE framework that extends into sixth grade. Like I was talking about earlier, that is already completed, and that has been publicized on our website, on ISB's website, and also no later than July 1st of 2024, ISB needs to publish and maintain a current database by region of employer-based champions for work-based learning and also career readiness programs, and also needs to publish and maintain an inventory of resources available to support schools with implementing CCPEs. So both of these are completed as of right now. So let's go into how it affects both Chicago public schools and then all other Illinois public schools. So no later than July 1st of 2024, Chicago public schools needed to adopt and commence implementation of a PaCE framework for grades 6 through 12. And the framework needs to either be the Illinois PaCE framework in its entirety or an aligned framework. And the CPS also would need to be available on a prominent location on each of the district's websites as well. For all other school districts in Illinois other than CPS, y'all have one extra year. So no later than July 1st of 2025, a school district other than CPS needs to adopt and then commence implementation of career exploration, career development activities in accordance with the PaCE framework for grades 6 through 12. And also the school district's framework, like CPS, it needs to be available on a prominent location on the district's website as well, according to the law. And also a school district serving grades 9 through 12 must also have elected to implement CCPEs or elected to opt out of implementation. So let's discuss that as well. So with this public act, it also discusses CCPEs and has dates for those as well. So CPS specifically must have elected to implement CCPEs for class of 2026 to offer at least one endorsement area. For class of 2028, offer at least 2 endorsement areas, and then for class of 2030, offer at least 3 if their district has an enrollment of 350 students or more. So for all other school districts, again, like previously, you all just have one more year. So 2027, that would be the 1 endorsement area. 2029, that would be 2 endorsement areas. And then 2031, offer at least 3 endorsement areas for CCPEs if the district has the enrollment of 350 students or more. So you may be looking at all of these requirements and wondering, what does it look like if we decide to opt out instead? So a school board may be able to opt out of implementation of all or part of the requirements, but it's important to consider the following first. So what is the school district's current system for college and career readiness? The school district's costs of implementation of PaCE balanced against the potential benefits to students, the willingness and the capacity of local businesses to partner with the school district for implementation of pathways, the willingness of higher education institutions to partner as well. So both local businesses and higher education. So that could be with availability of dual credit opportunities, availability of statewide database of participating local business partners for the purpose of career readiness and the accessibility of those partners. And then finally, the availability of teachers who actually meet the faculty credential standards for dual credit courses in the specific endorsement area. So if you are looking to opt out of CCPEs, this is something that is possible, but the school district has to consider all of those things and then report their findings to ISB. Okay, so there is also House Resolution 681, which is to celebrate college and career readiness in the state of Illinois. So for ISAC specifically, we have to publish an annual report documenting and also recognizing the leadership of districts in implementing the PaCE framework. For ISB specifically, they need to publish the annual report documenting and recognizing leaderships of the eligible districts implementing CCPEs. So again, ISAC PaCE, ISB CCPEs. And also just continue to encourage all districts serving 9 through 12 to implement CCPEs in multiple areas in collaboration with different post-secondary partners and workforce partners as well. And then for both ISAC and ISB, we need to just encourage all of these grades serving 8 through 12 to implement their own PaCE framework and to continue to encourage districts to extend the PaCE framework into a 6th and 7th grade as well. Okay, so now that we have discussed the background with PaCE, the legislation it came out of, what is coming up in terms of what schools need to do when it comes to PaCE, let's talk about getting started. So we also want to mention our work with PaCE. We've had a broad reach across the state. We have identified 233 schools and districts who are currently implementing PaCE, with 173 of those being customized PaCE frameworks, so PaCE-aligned frameworks. 56 of those have been customized with us here at ISAC. We do have a PaCE process that we go through to help schools customize their own PaCE framework. and then 60 who have adopted the Illinois PaCE framework in its entirety. We also have a repository of frameworks of different schools who have customized their own PaCE framework. It is on our website, isac.org/PaCE. So if you are looking to see what other schools have done, maybe schools that are similar to yours or schools that are in your area, you can go to our website and see who has sent us their PaCE framework and if you want ideas. So what is the purpose of a framework? So whether it's customized or not, it is supposed to be used as a tool to guide college and career readiness that is happening within a school or a district. So having that framework, it provides the school or district with three things. So the first is sustainability, then accountability and flexibility. So I do want to talk about each of those a little bit. For sustainability specifically, having a framework that is in place, that is posted all around the school, this ensures that all of the staff in the school understand what is happening in terms of college and career readiness. Because there are many schools around the state where maybe it's one or two people's jobs to take care of the college and career readiness efforts, right? So if the building is structured this way, you know, if that person or those people leave, then they may take their programming with them, right? So having that framework, it allows for efforts to be replicated from year to year, regardless of who comes in and out of the offices. There's also accountability. So accountability, by having that framework, you have now provided all of the staff in the building with an understanding of what needs to happen at each grade level. Staff would be looking at this framework and identify how the work that they are doing fits into the framework. So just an example, if an English teacher is looking at the framework, they see that resume writing is something that you want juniors to know before the end of the school year so that they are, you know, ready to start writing resumes and things like that, personal statements, then they can look at the framework and be like, okay, well, junior year English teachers, are you able to incorporate a unit on resume writing in order to hit that benchmark? So this can help with teachers deciding, you know, what their role is and how they can help implement some of the benchmarks that are on the framework. And then finally, flexibility. So flexibility, since the mandate of adopting Illinois PaCE framework in its entirety, as is, falls on the education agencies, only we need to be aligning our services to that framework. Schools and districts, they have that flexibility to customize their own framework as they see fit for their school's needs, their student population needs. So it is completely up to the school or district how they want to use this resource. They can, you know, adopt Illinois PaCE as is, or they can create their own customized framework. The other thing that I want to mention on this slide here, it's not written anywhere, but one thing I would like to for you all to keep in mind is that frameworks can either encompass a single school, multiple schools, can be for an entire district or for an entire region. So frameworks can be either specifically or broadly applied depending on, you know, what your school needs. So this is what the PaCE framework looks like for middle school students. So it looks quite a bit different than it would look in high school. There are way less benchmarks, as you'll see here in a second. But the middle school framework is meant to lead students in to high school and have them work on their different social emotional learning skills so that they are ready for the coursework that comes with high school. So let's talk a little bit about the components of the middle school framework. So the first thing I want you all to notice is the little arrows that say by the end of. So by the end of 6th grade, by the end of 7th grade, by the end of 8th grade. So this is just markers for you to put different benchmarks under each of those. This just means we, you know, want to make sure that we are hitting on these benchmarks before the end of that school year. We don't want to put a specific time frame on it, but we think that this is important for 6th graders to know before they enter into 7th grade, or for 7th graders to know before they enter into the 8th grade. There are also two categories of benchmarks, so a student should be exposed to, and then a student should be supported to. So the student should be exposed to, this is just different concepts that a student needs to understand before the end of that school year, and then a student should be supported to. These are action items or experiences that they should be supported in doing. And then there are also three domains that you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, aspiration, self-advocacy, and planning. So like I said earlier, it's a lot of the social emotional learning piece, building up self-esteem, developing executive functioning skills to be prepared to plan, and developing their self-esteem, self-advocacy skills so that once they get into high school, the different things that they need to do in high school they are ready for. So this is what the high school framework looks like. So 9 through 12, as I said earlier, there are a lot more benchmarks, but we know that there is a lot that students have to prepare for while they are still in high school so that they can be ready for the transition out and into whatever their post-secondary option is. So first thing I want to point out on this slide is that we see the by the end of again. So again, these are just markers with whatever benchmark falls underneath. We want to make sure that they are hitting on at least at some point within that school year before they enter the next grade level. There are also three categories in this one. So two main ones, it's the same as before. So a student should know, understanding key concepts. Students should be supported to. These are action items, experiences that they should be supported to do. And then there's a third one here that isn't in the middle school framework a student should have, but this is actually only in 12th grade. This is for time-sensitive tasks, such as completing the FAFSA, completing the alternative application, or their different admissions applications, since we know that more often than not there are deadlines or specific things that we want students to hit by a specific date. And then finally, the three domains of the high school framework. So they are a little bit different from middle school. Again, middle school was all of that back work of social emotional learning, executive functioning skills. Now we are doing all of the prep work to get them ready for their transition. So we have career exploration and development, post-secondary education, exploration, preparation, and selection, and then financial aid and financial literacy. So when getting started with a framework, the first step for your team is to decide whether to adopt Illinois PaCE framework as is, or to develop your own customized version. So on the screen here, you can see on the left is the full version, on the right is a customized version where you can put in your school logo, your school organization name, and then you can decide which benchmarks go on your framework. So when adopting the Illinois PaCE framework as is, it's important first to review each benchmark on the framework and consider administration support and approval of these benchmarks. What are your available resources right now to hit on all of these benchmarks? Do you have all of the resources necessary? If not, do you have the money to get the resources that you need? Then also benchmarks that align with CCRIs, so making sure that the Illinois PaCE framework is also subsequently hitting on college and career readiness indicators as well. You want to consider the needs of your student population. So what is it that your students need, and does the Illinois PaCE framework hit on that? Partnerships within the community as well, so making sure that you have partnerships that can help you hit on the different benchmarks, especially when it comes to the career piece, and making sure that you have enough partners to help with the career programming in your school. And then finally, potential costs as well. The last thing I do want to mention, though, if you are deciding to adopt the framework as is, you do not need to obtain ISAC approval or anything like that. The Illinois PaCE framework is a free resource, so feel free to adopt it, advertise it within your school or district, however you see fit. So let's say you looked at the Illinois PaCE framework as is, and you decided, there are quite a few benchmarks that we don't consider important for the students in our school, or maybe they don't fit the goals of your school or the goals of your students. So you may want to consider developing a customized framework instead. So again, reviewing each of those benchmarks. And when you are developing your own, you need to make sure that you are addressing college and career readiness indicators, administration support and or approval again. So once you do have a customized framework, sending it over, making sure that it's been approved. Available resources, again, needs of the student population, making sure that if you are customizing a framework that you are doing that with your students' needs in mind. Again, partnerships within the community, potential costs, but then also the last thing that we want to make sure that you are doing is taking stock of who should or needs to be involved in the framework development piece of it. So making sure that it's not just one person in the school that is developing that customized framework, that you are involving the right people in those efforts. So schools and districts, they can either request a PaCE framework development workshop from us here at ISAC, or you can go ahead and try to take a stab at it, customizing a PaCE framework on your own with your own teams. If you are deciding to customize one, though, it is important to establish a framework development team. So again, it's only necessary if you're customizing one. And what we want out of this framework development team is that they should be composed of people that work directly in the school, for the school, and composed of, just different positions within the school. So some of these potential members could be counseling staff, school district administration, so that could be curriculum directors, principal, superintendent, right, making sure the right people are there. And then we also want to make sure that teachers from different departments are there as well. This is something that we have seen that schools, if they don't invite teachers in the PaCE framework development piece of it, then they miss out on most of the school day. There could be benchmarks that you don't know is already being implemented within the school day. So if you have the teachers there as well, they can let you know, hey, we do hit on this benchmark, but I'm just letting you know, junior year is the wrong year. We do this in sophomore year, or we do this in senior year. So just making sure that teachers are there as well. Okay, so let's go into the PaCE implementation process now. So when you are done picking the framework and customizing your framework, you want to now start the implementation process. So you need to establish an implementation team. So this is different from the framework development team. These will be the people that are responsible for making sure that the benchmarks on your framework are being implemented within the school and being implemented well. And they should be composed of members working within each of the three PaCE domains. So they will work collaboratively just to assess, what's being done, address any, gaps within the school, and also implement programming that align with the framework. So the implementation team is going to look a little bit different from the framework development team because we need a few more people at the table. So just including a variety of school, district, and community partners just ensures that the unique needs of your students are being met. All available school, district, and community resources are identified and also considered. And then students are also being exposed to college and career readiness by various staff members within the school, and not just from maybe one or two people within the school. So what could potential implementation team members be? The effectiveness of PaCE implementation definitely depends on who is involved. So potential members include a lot of the same people from the framework development team, but there are more people that we want to invite. So community college partners, four-year college or university partners, if you have, community colleges or four-year college universities near you. Your local ISAC core member, because they are able to help with all three of the PaCE domains. So if you are looking for more partners, making sure that you also have your ISAC core member on your team, and then local business partners as well, because they will be especially helpful for the career benchmarks and the career programming within your school. So here at ISAC, we have identified a three-step process that we have seen work for schools and districts who have been successful in implementing a PaCE framework. So the first step is to take an inventory, and that just means identifying where your school is currently at in relation to the framework. The next step is to prioritize gaps, documenting what is currently being done, as well as brainstorming ways to address any unmet benchmarks. And then the final step is action planning. So this is to divide the work up and determine how each of the benchmarks are going to be implemented. We encourage that schools and districts revisit these steps, every single year just to make sure that they are still on track with implementing the framework. So step one is to take that inventory. So this is to assess what's currently being done within the school to meet each of the benchmarks on your framework, whether that be it's Illinois PaCE as is or customized. And then identifying areas of strength and areas of need of additional support. So when you are taking that inventory, we want you to consider which benchmarks are currently being met, how well or effectively are these benchmarks being met, right? Are enough students coming to the programming? Are enough students getting it? Or are maybe not enough people coming and we need to work on it, right? And then which benchmarks are not being met at all? So the goal with PaCE is not to have, 100% participation for every single benchmark. It is important that you discuss as a team what is successful for each of the benchmarks. So to help with taking an inventory, we do have worksheets that we created that schools can use. And these worksheets, the team would go through each of the benchmarks on their framework and then indicate something called a degree of completion. So it is rated 1 through 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. They're broken down by each of the domains. So each of the benchmarks will be with whatever domain that they are in. And you would rate each of the benchmarks 1 through 5, with 1 being, less than this percent of students are meeting this benchmark, and 5 being 100% of students or all students are meeting this benchmark. So like I said, it may not be feasible for most schools to, have a framework where every single benchmark is being rated a 5 and 100% of students are meeting each of the benchmarks. Personally, I don't think that that is possible or even necessary for a school to be hitting because every student is different and not every student is going to need to hit every single benchmark on your framework. So again, it's important to establish with your team what is considered successful and what is considered a gap or what needs to be further developed. So once you figure out what the gaps are, we want to prioritize them. So we figure out, which of the benchmarks have maybe rated a 1 or a 2, or maybe even a 0, aka there's nothing being done for that benchmark. We want to document any activities that are currently being done and then brainstorm potential activities to improve or expand on what is currently being done. So we have worksheets for this as well. So the step 2 prioritize gaps worksheet, it's pictured right on the screen. So what it looks like is you would list the benchmark. So create a resume and personal statement. You would mark which of the domains that it is within. So for that one specifically, it's for career. So they documented the current activity within the school. An English assignment is given during the spring semester of a student's junior year. And the current partners are junior English teachers or junior AP English teachers. There's another benchmark, complete a career cluster survey. As you can see on the current activities, there is nothing listed. Maybe there isn't something that they are doing currently to meet that benchmark. So they instead went for the potential activities section. So the potential activity would be have students complete a career cluster survey during their freshman English class with their freshman English teacher. So this is just a brainstorming step. You are not going through, each of the who, what, when, where, why. That is actually going to be in the action planning step, but this is just to brainstorm with your team. Can we use class time? Does it need to be outside of class time? Are we able to come in as counselors and do it? Do we want the teachers to facilitate it specifically? So let's go into the action planning part of this. So once you have prioritized the gaps and you have gone through and brainstormed different activities that you can do to meet the benchmark, you need to develop that action plan for implementing both the current and also potential activities involved. So this is where we go through and address the who, what, when, where, and how involved with each of the benchmarks and solidifying all of the logistics involved with actually implementing it within the school. So this just ensures that any of the activities that were brainstormed and also agreed upon in step 2 are actually being put into action. So with step 3, we do also want to make sure that we are, not trying to take on the entire framework all at once. We here at ISAC, we recommend taking maybe 1 to 3 per semester or year to work on, depending on what you think is feasible for your school. So again, it's not that we want you to implement the entire framework and be perfect by July 1st of 2025, right? It says commence implementation. So that means at least get started. So we want to make sure that you are taking this as a marathon and not a sprint, and taking it to a place where you know that it will be successful. So not taking on too much at once. So let's look at what the action planning worksheet would look like for those same benchmarks that we just went through. So create a resume and personal statement. So as you can see, who is involved and what is their role. We decided junior English and junior AP English teachers will actually schedule 2 lessons. They have identified the dates of when it will take place and where. All of the lessons will be held during class, so during class time. And then any action items, just make sure students have access to laptops as well as Illinois WorkNet to help them with their resume. So for the other benchmark, complete a career cluster survey, they decided that freshman English teachers will schedule the lesson while school counseling staff will attend the lesson. So again, this is the example of using class time, but maybe it's not the teacher that is doing the activity. Counselors are just using class time to come in and actually have a time to be with large amounts of students at once. So this very similar happened to me in high school, my freshman year. They decided instead of English that we were going to do this in social studies, but we did it in all of our social studies classes where we did that career cluster survey. The counselors came in, they helped us with it and all of that. So they decided on one date in the spring semester to get that done. All of the lessons are held during class, and the action items are, again, just making sure that students have laptops, access to Illinois WorkNet to take the career cluster survey, and reach out to school counseling staff to confirm attendance. Okay, so now that we have talked about the legislation, what are the steps that Illinois public schools need to take moving forward, getting started with PaCE, as well as the PaCE implementation process, let's talk about resources and support options. So the best place to turn to, first and foremost, is our website, isac.org/PaCE, where we have materials as well as resources to support PaCE. So first is the customized PaCE framework examples. Like I talked about earlier, if you are looking for examples to motivate you or to at least give you some sort of inspiration for what you want your PaCE framework to look like. We also have the descriptions of our different PaCE support options. We have implementation worksheets as well. All of the worksheets that we just discussed are on our website. We have both fillable worksheets for your customized framework as well as ones that correspond with Illinois PaCE in its entirety. Then we also have our upcoming in-person and virtual trainings that you just have to navigate through our PaCE website. You'll see the trainings tab that you can click on to see what is upcoming for PaCE. We also have our PaCE support request form, so we offer both in-person and virtual support options for schools and districts to learn and understand how to implement a PaCE framework. So we have a PaCE overview, that's what you are viewing right now, the PaCE framework development workshop, implementation support meetings as well. So this request form has to be submitted for any of the ISAC PaCE support options. So just making sure that you scroll all the way to the bottom and press the submit button, otherwise we will not receive the request. So let's talk about the PaCE support options in a little bit more depth. So we have the PaCE Framework Development Workshop. So this is a facilitated process of customizing a PaCE framework where one or two people from our team come out to your school and facilitate this process for you all. Excuse me. And it's a 2 to 3 hour time frame. A PaCE framework development team is required to schedule the workshop, so making sure that you know who is going to be coming to the workshop before you schedule it. That's very important. And the outcomes would be getting a copy of the customized PaCE framework, customized PaCE implementation worksheets as well. We will be working on that on the back end, and then we will send that to you, as well as provide continued ISAC support throughout your PaCE journey. We also have PaCE implementation support. So these are a series of 3 one-hour meetings with ISAC, corresponding to each of the 3 implementation steps. That's why it's a series of 3. So we work with the implementation team to understand the different steps. So to take an inventory, prioritize gaps and action plan worksheets. And upon completion of the meetings, the school or district will be better equipped to implement their framework, as well as identify resources from us here at ISAC. We also have our Illinois PaCE modules training. So this is an in-person training that we host. We have a few here upcoming in the fall of 2024, and we will also have some in the spring as well of 2025. This training will discuss how to get started with PaCE, best practices for implementation, next steps to successfully adopt and implement, and they are broken up into 2 half-day trainings. So the first half day would be module 1 and 2, and then the second half day would be modules 3 and 4. I also want to discuss that if you are using GAP Access, the Gift Assistance Program access to, see FAFSA and alternative application completion, GAP Access, there is also an option for you to be able to document your college and career readiness plan. So there is a drop-down menu that indicates if your school is following a specific college and career readiness plan. So it's either other, Illinois PaCE framework, customized PaCE Align framework, or none. And this is really helpful because we are able to also see, if people mark none, we are able to reach out and help because again, this is by law that it needs to be implemented by a certain time. So it just shows us what the schools are doing, and also if there's any schools that need any help. There's also the Illinois PaCE student checklist. Again, all of these are on our website, but the PaCE student checklist, it aligns with the benchmarks of the Illinois school PaCE framework. So it is specific for that. We do not have a customized one as of right now, but if you have a PDF editor, you can customize it yourself if needed. So what is it exactly? This is a PaCE framework that is written in student-friendly language. So it is broken down by grade level. It can be used to guide students through the college and career planning process from 9th through 12th grade. So, we understand that counselors have large caseloads and may not be able to give each student that, one-on-one, advising. So if for whatever reason, there's students that you see just that one time or 2 times a year for registration, giving them this will at least, give them something to work off of. They can put it up on their fridges or share it with their parents, just so that they know what they need to be hitting on for that school year. There's also the Illinois Career Pathways Dictionary. So it was first published in 2018, where it was a document, but now we have decided to take it to a website. So the website has all of the different terms that come with college and career pathway endorsements and PaCE and all of those things. If there are terms that I said today that you're still like, I have no idea what she means, you need to go to the Pathways Dictionary because it will have all of the terms related to career pathways, as well as if you click on a term and get a definition, it'll give you related terms as well. So if you are looking for agreed upon definitions, to help your staff as well, to foster that alignment, for all of these initiatives, definitely send them this resource. There is also a PaCE implementation guide. So the PaCE implementation guide, this is a guide that provides guidance on adopting and implementing a PaCE framework, building understanding with different stakeholders on PaCE, developing a plan for implementation, executing that plan, as well as best practices for how to build a team. And then finally, there is the PWR Act newsletter. So the PWR Act newsletter receives all of the latest updates and the different resources on the PWR Act, so all of those 4 components. So if you are looking to get news and updates on all of that, definitely check out the pwract.org and sign up for their newsletter. Okay, and thank you for joining our virtual pre-recorded session today. If you have questions or you need to have your framework added to our site, contact us, isac.pace@illinois.gov. And if you are looking to see, what's up and coming in terms of ISAC for professional development opportunities, PaCE opportunities, sign up for our e-messaging service to receive all of those latest news updates at isac.org/e-messaging. And if you're a counselor, you would just click the counselor tab.